The Japan you see online is not the Japan I have personally experienced. It's been a week since I got back from Japan. I spent a month there, still sitting with the whole thing. Visually stunning, clean streets, serene temples, and the kind of aesthetic that burns itself into your brain. But something else came back with me too, and it's not the kind of thing you post on Instagram. Before the trip, I didn't just pack bags, I packed prep. I read blogs, watched hours of travel vlogs, practiced Japanese phrases on repeat. I learned what not to do, what not to wear, when to bow, and how to say thank you with the correct level of humility and many other etiquettes. And I read stories online about Japan's issues with racism from BIPOC travelers, and experiences were mixed. Overall, most of what I found painted Japan as a near utopia where people are endlessly kind. Strangers go out of their way to help you, and the technology feels like something from the future. So I cautiously hoped for the best. Apparently, that was too optimistic. Away to first red flag small town in Nagano, I got seated at a round table with some locals. A minute later, they asked to be moomed. Awkward, men but fine, then 3 white tourists came in. Suddenly, the server was all smiles. I'm at walking them through the menu like it was a Michelin tasting. My food, plunked on the table like a passive-aggressive post-it. No eye, no words, no eye contact, just the sound of a plate meeting wood. And that wasn't an outlier. Another nearly empty place. An East Asian group got table service. We got handed a buzzer. In Tokyo, at a sushi restaurant, and had I watched a South Asian group and a Latin American one both get told takeout only. Reservation wasn't the problem as walk-ins after them were seated immediately. We lined, then there was Osaka. We lined up outside an okonomiyaki spot. Staff made eye contact, scanned our faces, uppita, and suddenly announced the line was closed. No signs. 2 hours before the stated closing time. As we were walking down the stairs, other group strolled right in, not a word said. Even asking for directions in general was hit or miss. At Haminura, some people would look through me. Others walked off mid-sentence. At Namba Station, the info desk was closed. So I asked a ticket agent where to exchange my rail pass. He laughed, literally, and said, "So you know this isn't the right place?" And then why are you here? Very helpful energy. When I asked again, he gave me the wrong location, said it was downstairs. Turns out, that it was 10-minute walk away in a different building altogether. In Tokyo, Panamare, I server cheerfully point where the tea dispenser was to a Japanese couple. He never mentioned it to us and we overheard it. Hadahui, he spoke English too, so that wasn't it. After the meal, I said Gokasama Deshida. He smirked and looked away. Hada made it was almost impressive. The pattern was clear by then. Locals walked into warm greetings, with all the energy of a welcome home. Us, a faint nod if we were lucky. Leaving was just as awkward, and Harika staff rarely acknowledged us, so we'd turn back, smile, and say arigatou gozaimasu, first hoping for even a glance. Most times, just silence. At one on spot, after we'd finished our meal, we took turns using the restroom. At the TEDx staff stared at us the entire time. Not curious, but a sharp stare which leaves you uncomfortable. The place wasn't even busy. You'd think we were shoplifting oxygen. If you're dark-skinned or black, these things build up fast. None of it is loud. No one yells. No one confronts you, but they don't have to. The exclusion is quiet, calculated, and cold. But you're not pushed out, but you're made invisible. Polite on the surface, and added but distant enough to remind you that you're not really welcome. The racism is passive, but it's there. You see it in the subtle ways your presence is either ignored or avoided. It's almost as if your experience depends on the skin tone. And I felt Japan by the end. I felt Japan isn't really even trying if you don't fit the ideal tourist image. The tourist floodgates are open, and if your experience sucks, there are 1,000 others behind you ready to take your place. Courtesy becomes selective. Hospitality, rules, rigid. I got the sense that Japan is a society deeply rooted in pride. Hat with humility, mostly reserved for the brochure and for those who fits the mold. It often felt like it's their way or no way. That mindset bleeds into the national narrative too. Japan continues to highlight its own wartime suffering, but yet there seems to be a remarkable silence, even venal, when it comes to acknowledging its atrocities in places like Nanjing, or Taiwan, or its treatment of prisoners of war. And what stayed with me wasn't the temples or the technology or the scenic views. It was how easily I was made to feel like I didn't exist, over and over again. I've been carrying that weight for weeks now, and I just needed to say it out loud. This side of Japan isn't what you usually see online, but it's real. And it happened to me. Follow it during my prep research, I'd observed negative experiences shared by Black and fellow POC. However, I also came across positive experiences such as street interviews on YouTube, top-rated Reddit posts that appeared on the first page of Google search results. In hindsight, I believe they were PR-driven. And this mixed outcome from the research and balancing it whether unique cultural experiences, geisha, samurai, Edo architecture, tea ceremony, it's in Japan, I proceeded to approach the trip with an open mind. But I also considered the potential for discrimination, although not at the magnitude, openness, persistence that I personally experienced, common as an Asian person living in an Asian country. I have always felt Asian countries harbor a ton of racism towards darker-skinned people, and have it's exhibited differently and with way less hostility where I live, but it's always there in some way. I have a much better time on your next trip. Very well written post, Blue. Thanks, I appreciate it. Parla, I have visited Asian country or China, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. Japan was the most hostile, next to Singapore. Surprisingly, I had a good experience in China and Malaysia. Of course, there was tension and stares, but it was because people were genuinely curious about me. It didn't came off as intentional.